Hello, this is an introduction to the strategy game Warring Factions, brought to you by Maximinus After you log in to the new account, the first thing you'll encounter is the star log. This is where you get all your messages from and where you respond to all the other players. I'm going to show you how to set up your first colony. And if you need help, you can message the other players that are listed in this introduction message. Your main colonies found on the right hand side of the screen, and your fleets are found on the left hand side. So the first thing I'm going to do is find my expedition detachment, which I eventually do, and then disband it. But the first thing I'll do is unload the cargo, which is under the roster here for the personnel, because it contains 2,000 colonists. And the disband fleet means that the crew go back into the population to stimulate the economy. Then I go to the main page of the colony overview. The first thing I'm going to do is set up my development index, which is going to be high-tech industries, because that's the most beneficial for your first colony. Making sure that it's a democracy. All of the regular statistics are here for every starter colony. You can use these to figure out a lot of tricks in the game later on with maths when you know the averages. And then I'm going to set my monthly wage to 1,500 with no income tax and 5% wealth tax. And the aim is to increase my colonist wealth to about 160. And that will increase the amount of land that grows, and I'll counteract that with some laws. So I'll do mandatory recycling, minimum wage, legalise narcotics, and ban contraceptives. And the combination of those will increase the population growth, and it will also increase crime and sickness, but the higher wealth will counteract the sickness, and then I'll only need to build police stations to stop the crime from the high wealth. So the first thing I'll do now is build 100 of each of the basic facilities, which is quite expensive at the beginning of the game, but it's something you need to do in order to stabilise your economy, even though it's half your money. So there's 100 entertainment facilities, 100 hospitals, and 100 police stations. Now the colony should be set up to go. What you should do now is establish your capital, but I forgot to do that. I'll do that later. So in the shipyard, first I'm just going to check out the planet that I'm on. You can see it's quite nice. But what I need to do is disband my other fleets that I have docked at the shipyard under this fleet management tab. You can see the Shelter Hope, which is a colonizer, and the Escort, which is a corvette. And then I just select one of each to destroy, and I'll get back quite a few credits from that. Makes up for the buildings. And I won't have to pay the upkeep on the ships. I know that the system's heavily defended, so I'm going to make some probes to send out and have a look around. Then you just use the sliders to choose how many workers, and that will take 3 minutes. If it says 3 hours in the game, everything is slowed down 60 times, or sped up. So 1 second is, in real life, is 1 minute in the game, in the simulation. Now I've gone to the local trade tab to buy some resources, but I'll need to make room in my colony first. This is available to most new players, so you don't need to worry about building mines right at the start of the game. But I'll show you how to start research projects as well. So I like to demolish my farms because I like to use up my land for other things than farming. And even though you gain a small measure of wealth, it increases your wealth by 10% or some such for the amount you put into the farm. But I think I calculated once, it's something like a 9 times weight for the output to come back to get 10%. It only really matters when you've got billions of population and you're moving around lots of food. So here I've gone to the trade station. There are shortcuts you can use with scripts to automatically buy and select multiple items and things, but copy and pasting does the job. And the trade station interface means that this station's in orbit, and you send out transports to pick up and ferry back the resources from it. So orbital trade stations can also trade with ships that bypass without landing on the planet, and they're a good target for troop transports to overtake and capture the resources. So now I've got to wait for the ships to finish building all my probes, and then I'll show you the solar system view and how to send them out. My fleet's been built, so now I'm going to go and commission them. Under the fleet management tab, you make sure that you click flagship on the right hand side, and then you can name the fleet. And there are scripts you can download using Grease Monkey with the Chrome browser to automatically commission fleets and automatically send out mass orders to mass amounts of fleets. But it requires you to have some aptitude in coding, even though it's not really coding, it's just really fundamental logic. As long as you can follow instructions in the script, you'll be able to understand how to use the script. And there's plenty of good programmers that play this game that have made good scripts that speed up copy pasting like what I'm doing right now. But you kind of get used to repetitive clicking playing this game. One name for it is boring factions, when it's boring, but when it's fun, they call it Warcrack, because you'll stay up all night playing it, because you might have whole solar systems depending on defences happening. So it's quite an engaging game, because you have to respond to the game events in real life, because the simulation never stops. It's ongoing, and everyone logs in to move their ships around inside of the simulation. Now I'm going to send a probe out to explore the solar system, And this is the 3D map viewer. Now, all the ships show up as small diamonds, and all this solar systems, of course, as stars, and within each solar system there are multiple planets. And all the distances are calculated in a matrix, so everything's into a time scale inside of the movements. And yeah, there's quite a huge array of ship designs that I'll explain a little bit later. There is no game that has as many possibilities of ship types as Warring Factions, trust me. It has an infinite amount of ship armor, weapon, thruster, hull combinations that you could possibly imagine. And that's to do with the complex research tree and the combat mechanics to do with the algorithm and when ships engage each other. And huge battles can slow the system down and take place over real-time days, which is horrendous when you're trying to go to work and you know you've got a huge battle going on the internet somewhere. You know, it's not like you can see huge ships fighting each other, but the amount of time and effort you put into understanding the strategic situation pays off, because you get the mathematical results from it. You can play this game entirely from a cell phone. You don't need a desktop computer to play it. It's probably quite nice to play on a tablet. But here I'm using the interface to send around my explorers and the map rather than just using the shortcuts, which I highlight if you can see in the bottom right of the screen. Once you get the hang of where you're exploring, you can shortcut it. Everything's been made hyperly efficient, so all the drop menus show exactly what you need to know for each thing. Everything's compartmentalized as you'd expect in a military style game. Heavily relying on mathematics to decide your next move, basically, when you understand the the politics within the groups of the people playing and what areas they control. There's a whole page is dedicated to logistics, maths and planning. I have a scientist, and it's actually quite a good scientist for the start of the game, and after you hire them, you go into the science tab and select research projects, and I think there's 14 of them under the technology tree. The basic garage lab's pretty garbage, so the first thing I want is a new research facility, and 10,000 credits is enough for brand new research projects right at the start of the game, which you can up to 1 million, and then up to 10 million later on, and up to 100 million in the late game and more. Every time you add more money, you add more time, so 25 days is 25 24-minute intervals, because a 24-minute period is a day in the game. So you could do the maths on that. I don't really want to make videos full of math sums. Now I'm checking out the other planets in the solar system. It looks like they've all been terraformed. So whatever gaseous or rock or barren type planet they were, they've been made adapted for life for this civilization, which the optimal temperature's 15 degrees in this game. So now if you look in the 3D map, these unexplored areas are now explored and they have their own little icon planets. So when you've explored vast areas of the galaxies, when you scroll through them, if you've explored them by hand, you really know every place because you search them for minerals. And you know like the patterns that you've looked through, so you can almost, you don't get lost when you scroll through it anymore because you know dimensionally where you are once you've played it for a while. But this becomes not disorientating. That being spun around in 3D space feels normal after a while. Yeah, now just checking that last planet, just as an example for this video on how to send ships. It's really daunting for a completely new player. These the one thing about all the planets in this system is that they don't have quite as good a mineral deposits as the home world, so it would be good to set up mining on the home world, which is I've done a lot of research into transfiguring indices, so how to exploit the system and manipulate the amount of population you move around and how much wealth you generate and don't generate in order to get an outcome regardless of the consequences or cost in that. So there is a mathematical way to do stuff which makes you think quite cold and calculated because it's part of the logic in the game, so it's harmless. And now at this point in the game, at the start, I finally remembered to establish my home colony as my capital. Now I could check out what else everyone else is saying in the game. This is generally what you do when you're looking for things to do. When you're waiting for ships to transfer, there's a huge chat forum that has a lot of history and a lot of banter. If you like banter with some strange Americans and Canadians, then I think that's the predominant player base. But anyway, there's people from everywhere, and we don't really ask and we don't really care where people are from as long as they communicate when they play the game. Now this is a forum from another round, and the guy Crabrock, who helped code the game, talked about what they did when they made it, and these are the initial factions. He was one that decided there should be more than 2 factions, and he had to make a huge case about why there should be more than 2 factions. And this was the original star map generator for the galaxy. Dunce Cap is the lead programmer. He knows the code of the game quite well. He's got the interface all sorted out and looking like this. A lot better than it used to look, which was like some type of harsh turquoise colour. So like absolutely nobody wanted to play the game because it was horrible to look at. So the interface makes it plausible. Now there's a problem that's happened here. Someone has had their fleet settings wrong. So amongst the orders is a huge list of ways you can screw up. And you only have to click the button once, like wrong once, and you've made a mistake because it's live. Everything you do in the game is live, and you can't take it back. So then when your ship starts attacking allies because you've accidentally clicked a button, it's quite frustrating. But that's just the way it needs to be. And you get a battle log which happens and tells you every ship that fired at every single ship, and you don't need to know the damage, but it's all calculated, and it's based on a targeting score and how much firepower you do and how much shielding, like how much like every other game, except because it's complicated, it has ways you can exploit it. So that's part of the fun of the game, is finding ways to exploit it. And here I save my probe by giving it a new destination of my home colony and giving it the order to avoid combat, and that should eventually get it out of combat with the fleet, the mercantile fleet that's trying to shoot it down for some reason. And that stuff just happens. But in other videos I can show you other battles, but I've had some pretty epic battles in this game. I've been playing it for 10 years now, just about. Yeah, you learn a lot about how to be persistent because only the people that persist win. And it sucks if you're persistent and then you lose, because then you have to figure out why you lost. So, yeah, it's great. It's just a simulation. And it's got this great map. I'm using it to check out this auto fleet clicker you might have just seen me sneakily use. That is okay to use, and there's places in the forum to find it. And that way I don't have to go into this star map every time and look at it manually. So someone from the game has kindly made this script, and now the fleets automatically find unexplored solar systems and then automatically transfer on an explore mission, and then automatically the next fleet is selected. So yeah, the myriad of options. There are bugs, but once you know what they are, they're not really that bothersome, because there's a million ways to do a single thing, really. If you don't try to game the system, it won't cause bugs, because that's usually when people find them, when they're doing stuff that's like every 24 minutes there's a game tick, and if you try to do things on that tick, it can cause huge bugs. So I'm just hovering over it with my mouse. There's a minute left. You could almost, when your battles are going, you can almost set a timer in real life to every 24-minute intervals in order to keep up with what's happening in the battles, because you can't stay stuck to your computer screen all day. You got to go and do normal life stuff. So it's a weird a double life if you ever get into the game long enough to finish a big battle. And here it does have a library, is the best part, which is the meaning of life. And if you want to take the time to read it, you can, which is the mathematical formula for the game in a nutshell. So thanks for listening. Stay tuned for more videos like this. I'll probably do. There's a lot of people that play this that have played it for a long time. They like new people, because not many people want to play this game. It's what I'd call, in the Dungeons and Dragons mythology, I would call this game Acheron, which is the cuboid world of perpetual warfare, because this game is about perpetual warfare. So you learn about, the most valuable lesson you learn from the game is how stupid war really is, because it's a cycle. But you wouldn't figure that out unless you got to, play it long enough to learn firsthand without having to go through it in blood. Thanks for listening.